The marketplace was alive with noise, light, and shadows. Bright neon lamps burned above hundreds of stalls, while the ground was covered in dust and old stains. Voices of traders mixed with the cries of hungry slaves. The air smelled of smoke, sweat, and strange spices. It was not a place of joy, it was a place of chains. At the center of the market stood a wide platform raised high like a stage. On that platform, glowing circles of energy marked the spots where slaves stood. Every circle was a prison of light. Whoever stepped inside could not leave without the master's command. The crowd called it the podium of shame. Among the captives stood one alien girl. She was young, her skin pale under the harsh lights and her wrists bound with metal cuffs that burned when she moved too fast. Her hair, once soft and clean, was now tangled. She kept her head low, eyes fixed on the ground. The people in the crowd whispered cruel things about her. She is weak. She is worth nothing. No one will buy her. Their words fell heavy on her ears. She had been sold and resold many times before, each time ending back in chains. She had stopped hoping for freedom long ago. Her heart was quiet, but her eyes still carried a hidden fire, though nobody noticed it. The auctioneer, a tall alien with 4 arms and a greedy smile, raised his voice. Next on the podium, the chained one. Look at her, still alive, still breathing, still useful. The crowd laughed. Some pointed. Others yawned. It was clear most had no interest. She felt smaller than ever, like a shadow ready to vanish, and then, suddenly, the crowd grew silent. A new figure stepped into the market. His steps were heavy yet calm. His clothes were simple but strong, and his face was hidden under the hood of a long coat. The light from the podium reflected off his eyes that were not like the others. They were human eyes. A murmur spread. A human? Here? Why would a human come to this place? They never trade here. The girl lifted her head for the first time in hours. Her gaze met his, and in that moment she felt something strange. Not ownership. Not cruelty. Something else. Something she had not felt for a long time. Attention. The auctioneer, sensing an opportunity, raised his voice louder. A fine guest from another world. Look here, human. This chained one can be yours for a fair price. She may not look strong, but she can serve, she can obey. What do you say? The human did not answer. He simply watched the girl. His silence made the crowd restless. She is worthless, shouted one voice. She is nothing but trouble, laughed another. The girl closed her eyes, ashamed once more. She thought, why is he looking at me? Does he see me as they do? Just another chain to own? But then the human stepped forward. Slowly, calmly, he reached into his coat. The auctioneer leaned closer, eager. The man pulled out a small pouch. The sound of coins clinking filled the air. He dropped the pouch into the auctioneer's hand. The crowd gasped. The price was higher than expected. Much higher. Nobody could believe it. Impossible. Why waste credits on her? What is he thinking? The auctioneer's smile widened. Sold, he shouted, slamming his hammer on the podium. The human has claimed her. The chains around her wrists loosened. The circle of light disappeared. For the first time in years, she was no longer bound to the podium. She stumbled forward, too weak to walk straight, but the human caught her before she fell. The crowd whispered, laughed, and mocked, but the man ignored them all. He placed a steady hand on her shoulder and guided her away. Her heart raced with fear and confusion. She wanted to ask him why, but the words caught in her throat. Finally, as they stepped into the darker side of the market, she whispered, Why did you buy me? The human did not stop walking. His voice was low, steady. Because no one else would. Those words hit her harder than the chains ever had. She looked up at him, trying to understand. His face was still hidden under the hood, but his eyes, those human eyes, held no greed, no cruelty. Only something she could not name yet. For the first time, she felt a small spark of hope. But deep inside, fear still lingered. Was this man truly her savior? Or was he only another master with a different mask? As the market noises faded behind them, she clutched her wrists where the chains had been. The marks burned, but her heart burned more, with questions, with fear, with something dangerously close to trust. The night air was cold as they stepped out of the marketplace. The human looked up at the stars, then back at her. You are free now, he said softly. Free. A word she had forgotten long ago. Could it really be true? Or was this the start of another cage she could not yet see? She followed him, silent, while her heart beat faster than it ever had before. The girl's steps were unsteady as the human guided her away from the marketplace. Her wrists still carried the red marks of chains and her body felt weak, but her mind was restless. She had been sold before many times, but never like this. No master had ever paid such a high price for her, and no master had ever looked at her without cruelty in their eyes. The alley outside the market was quiet compared to the chaos inside. Neon signs flickered, casting strange colors on the walls. The girl glanced at the man beside her, still hidden under his hood. His face remained a mystery, but his silence spoke louder than words. Finally, she asked again, her voice trembling, "Why me? Why spend so much money? For someone like me?" The human stopped walking. He turned slightly, his eyes meeting hers in the dim light. "Because freedom should not have a price," he said quietly. "Yet if paying coins is the only way to give it, then I will pay." His words confused her even more. Freedom? That word was nothing more than a dream to her. She wanted to believe, but doubt pressed against her chest like heavy chains. As they continued walking, her thoughts darkened. What if he is lying? What if this is only another trick? She had known humans only by reputation. Warriors, traders, explorers. But none had ever been seen buying a slave just to free them. The man led her through narrow streets until they reached a quieter district. A broken fountain stood in the center, water leaking slowly into the dirt. He stopped there and faced her directly. "You can leave," he said, his voice calm but firm. "You are not bound to me. The chains are gone. You are free to go anywhere you want." She froze. His words were simple, but they hit like a storm. Leave, walk away. Could it really be so easy? She looked at the open street stretching into the distance, but her legs would not move. Her heart beat wildly, torn between hope and fear. "No one gives freedom for nothing," she whispered. "What do you want from me?" The man studied her for a long moment. Then he lowered his hood. His face was younger than she expected, with strong features and tired eyes that held both sorrow and strength. "What I want," he said, "is for you to live as more than a chain. That is all." Before she could answer, a sound broke the silence, metal boots striking the ground. From the far end of the alley, two figures in dark armor appeared. Their helmets glowed with red light and long rifles rested in their hands. Slave hunters. The girl's blood ran cold. She knew that look, that stance. They were trackers sent by the market. No slave was allowed to walk free, not even one bought fairly. If the masters believed the sale was too strange, they sent hunters to follow. The man noticed her fear and stepped in front of her, shielding her with his body. The hunters raised their weapons. "Human," one of them barked. "That girl belongs to the market. You paid, yes, but she is not yours." "No human can claim a podium slave," the other hunter sneered. "Hand her over, or pay with your life." The girl's knees weakened. She gripped her wrist tightly, trembling. Her first taste of freedom was already being ripped away. She thought, "I should run. I should hide. I should not drag him into this." But before she could move, the human's voice cut through the night. Calm, steady, but dangerous. "I paid your master's price. I claimed her by your own laws. If you want her back." He reached into his coat, not for coins, but for something else. His hand rested on the grip of a hidden weapon. "You will have to fight me for her." The hunters laughed coldly, stepping closer. "A human against two armed guards? You will die here." The girl's breath caught in her throat. Her heart begged her to scream, to beg him to stop. She had seen too many die for less, yet something inside her held her still. The human lowered his hood fully now, his face lit by the neon signs. His eyes glowed with determination. He looked at the girl once more, and for the first time she saw no chains in his gaze. "You are free," he repeated softly, "and no one will take that from you again." The hunters tightened their grip on their weapons. The air grew sharp, every second heavier than the last. The girl felt her heartbeat in her ears as she stood behind him, torn between fear and awe. In that moment, she understood one thing. This man was not like the others. He was not her master, not her captor. He was her shield. The silence of the street shattered as the hunters moved closer, their boots pounding the ground. The night air hummed with danger. The girl held her breath, and then the human struck first. The night exploded with sudden movement. The two hunters raised their rifles, red lights glowing on their weapons, but the human was faster. In one smooth motion, he pulled a compact blaster from under his coat. A bright flash lit the alley as he fired, striking the ground near their boots. Dust and sparks flew, forcing the hunters to stumble back. The alien girl gasped, frozen in shock. She had never seen a man move with such calm speed, as if danger did not touch him at all. The hunters recovered quickly. "You will regret this, human," one shouted, raising his rifle again. The other spread out, circling to trap them. The alley filled with tension, every step echoing louder than before. The human did not flinch. His eyes narrowed and his hand stayed firm on the blaster. "We are leaving," he said coldly. "Stand aside," the hunters only laughed. "No one leaves with a podium slave. Not alive." Before they could fire, the human moved. He aimed not at them but at the neon signs above. His shot shattered a glowing lamp, raining down sparks and broken glass. The alley turned into a storm of light and smoke. In the chaos, he grabbed the girl's hand. "Run," he ordered. Her legs almost failed her, but something in his voice pushed her forward. Together, they sprinted down the dark passageways, boots pounding against stone. The hunters' shouts echoed behind them, followed by blasts of energy striking the walls. The air filled with heat and dust as shots missed them by inches. The girl's heart raced faster than ever before. Chains had taught her to move slowly, carefully. Now she was running free, and the feeling was both terrifying and thrilling. She clung to his hand, afraid to let go, afraid that if she stumbled, the hunters would drag her back into the shadows forever. They turned corner after corner, slipping into narrower alleys, through broken fences, past piles of abandoned scrap. The city around them was alive with strange noises, machinery grinding, creatures howling in the distance, but the only sound that mattered was the heavy footsteps chasing them. At last, the human pulled her into a crumbling building. He pushed the door shut behind them, locking it with a broken metal bar. The hunters' voices faded, but the danger was not gone. Inside, the room was dark and smelled of rust. Old crates lay scattered, and the ceiling leaked drops of water. The girl collapsed against a wall, clutching her chest, her breath ragged. The human knelt beside her, checking her wrists where the chains had been. The marks were still red, raw from years of metal. He pulled a small kit from his coat and gently rubbed a healing salve onto her skin. The cool touch burned for a moment, then softened the pain. She stared at him wide-eyed. Why are you doing this? You risk your life for me. You fight hunters for me. Why?" His eyes softened, though his voice remained calm. "Because you are not property. You are not chains. You are someone." The word struck her harder than the hunters' weapons. No one had ever spoken to her like that. For so long, she had been treated as less than nothing. Now this stranger was giving her something she had forgotten, worth. But doubt still whispered in her mind. She lowered her gaze. "I don't believe you. Humans, aliens, all are the same. No one helps without reason." He leaned back slightly, looking at her with quiet strength. "Maybe, but tonight I'm not here for reason. I am here because it is right." The silence stretched. The girl felt her throat tighten, unable to speak. For a moment, the only sound was the dripping of water and her own heartbeat. Then, crash, the door shook violently. The hunters had tracked them down. Their voices roared outside. "Human, you cannot hide! Hand over the girl, or we will burn this place to the ground." The girl's body froze. Fear returned, cold and sharp. She gripped his sleeve tightly. "They will kill you. They will take me back. Please leave me. I don't want you to die for me." But the human shook his head firmly. "No, I told you, you are free, and I will not let them take you again." The door rattled harder, glowing red as the hunters prepared to blast it open. The human stood tall, blaster ready, his body between her and the danger. His voice was steady, almost too calm for the storm outside. "When I say run, you run," he told her. "Do not look back. Do not stop." Tears burned her eyes. She wanted to argue, to beg him not to risk himself. But deep inside, she knew he would never listen. His eyes carried a fire she had never seen before. The door burst open with a thunderous crack. Light and smoke filled the room as the hunters stormed in. The human moved instantly. Blaster shots cut through the air, striking the crates, exploding sparks. He ducked, fired back, pushing them behind cover. The girl pressed against the wall, heart pounding, torn between terror and awe. Then, through the chaos, he looked at her once more. "Go," he shouted. Her legs shook, but she obeyed. She slipped through a hole in the far wall, crawling into the night. The sound of blaster fire echoed behind her, each shot like thunder in her ears. She did not know if he would follow, if he would survive, but she knew she could not waste his gift. For the first time in her life, she was running not as a slave, but as someone free. The night street stretched out before the alien girl as she ran. her bare feet striking the cold stone. The city felt endless, alleys twisting like a maze, shadows hiding both danger and escape. Behind her, the echo of blaster fire refused to fade. She could still hear his voice, "Go! Don't look back!" But she did look back, just once. Through the cracked wall, she caught a glimpse of the human still fighting. Sparks lit the room, his figure moving fast, standing firm against the hunters. Her chest tightened with fear. She had never seen anyone risk so much for her. She wanted to run farther, to leave the chaos behind. Yet every step forward felt like betrayal. Then, before her thoughts could settle, a sharp whistle cut through the night. She froze. From the rooftops above, a flash of red light appeared. One of the hunters had circled ahead. They had tracked her faster than she imagined. A shot sizzled past her shoulder, striking the wall. The girl stumbled, pressing against the corner. Her heart raced. They will catch me. They will chain me again. But at that very moment, the human burst out of the broken building, cloak torn, face streaked with dirt. His blaster still smoked from the last shot. He moved toward her with steady steps, even as the hunter on the roof fired again. "Stay low," he shouted. She dropped instantly. The human raised his blaster and fired at the rooftop. The hunter jumped aside, rolling back into the shadows, but the delay was enough. He grabbed her hand again, pulling her forward. Together they ran. The hunters pursued them with relentless fury. From rooftops, from alleys, from the glowing market gates, shadows moved, boots thundered, and red lights flashed. The girl's lungs burned, her legs screamed, but the human never slowed. His grip was strong, steady, unshaken. Every corner they turned, the city seemed to fight them. Closed gates, broken stairways, crowds of strange creatures that blocked their path. The hunters grew closer each time, their shouts echoing, "She is ours. Human, you cannot win!" The girl's heart broke with fear. Why does he not let me go? Why does he fight for me when no one else would? At last they reached a narrow bridge that stretched across a canal. The water below glowed faintly with chemicals, steam rising into the night. The bridge was weak, metal shaking with every step. "Faster," the human urged. They made it halfway across when 3 hunters appeared at the far end, blocking the path. Another 2 emerged behind them, cutting off escape. The girl froze. Trapped. Surrounded. The hunters laughed, their voices metallic through their helmets. "You cannot run anymore, human. Hand her over and we may let you live." The human stood tall, pulling her behind him. His blaster hummed with low power, almost empty. She saw it in his stance, in the way he shifted his weight. He was running out of strength, yet he refused to surrender. Her voice cracked with desperation. "Please, don't fight. They will kill you." "I am not worth this." His head turned slightly. His eyes met hers, burning with a fire that silenced her doubts. "You are worth more than they will ever know," he said firmly. The hunters advanced, weapons raised. The bridge creaked, metal groaning under the weight of so many. For a heartbeat, the world felt still, the air heavy, the water hissing below. Then the human acted. Instead of aiming at the hunters, he aimed downward at the bridge itself. A single blast struck the weak joint and the metal groaned louder. Cracks spread like lightning. The hunters realized too late. The bridge shook violently, breaking apart under their boots. With a deafening crash, the middle collapsed, sending 2 hunters tumbling into the toxic water below. Steam swallowed them instantly. The girl screamed, clinging to the human as the section beneath them tilted dangerously. He held her tight, leaping to the nearest stable beam. The remaining hunters staggered, struggling to regain balance. In the chaos, the human pulled her across the last stretch, jumping onto solid ground just as the bridge fully gave way. Metal crashed, water boiled, and the night filled with echoes of destruction. For a moment, silence returned. The surviving hunters shouted from the other side, their voices twisted with rage. But the broken canal now separated them, the distance too wide to cross quickly. Breathing hard, the girl collapsed against the wall, trembling. Her eyes filled with tears she could not stop. Why do you do this? You could have left me. You could have saved yourself." The human crouched beside her, his face calm despite the danger. "Because no one deserves to live in chains. Not even you." His words sank deep into her soul. For years, she had been told she was worthless. Now, for the first time, someone said the opposite. The sound of distant boots reminded them both the chase was not over. The hunters would find another way across. The market's reach was wide. The human stood again, offering his hand. "Come. We cannot rest yet." She hesitated, then placed her trembling hand in his. As he pulled her to her feet, she realized something she had never felt before. It was not only freedom he was giving her. It was trust, and trust was more frightening and more powerful than any chain. They disappeared into the night once more. Two shadows fleeing a world that refused to let them go. But in the girl's heart, a new fire burned. The night finally grew quiet. For the first time since the chase began, the alien girl and the human found themselves in an empty street. The air smelled of rust and smoke, but at least there were no hunters in sight. Their footsteps echoed softly on the cracked stone as they moved deeper into the forgotten district of the city. The girl's chest rose and fell quickly, her body still shaking from the run. She leaned against the wall of an abandoned shop, trying to catch her breath. They will find us again," she whispered, fear trembling in her voice. The human glanced at the dark alleyways around them, scanning carefully before speaking. "Maybe," he admitted, "but not tonight. Tonight you are safe." Safe. The word felt strange on her tongue. For years she had never known such a thing. Chains, cages, cold markets, that was her world. Now for a fleeting moment she stood in the open air, her wrists bare, no circle of light holding her prisoner. The human knelt down, checking the small wounds on her arms where the chains had cut deep. He pulled out another patch from his coat and gently pressed it against her skin. The medicine stung, but she did not pull away. Instead, she watched his hands, rough yet careful, working like someone who had done this many times before. "You treat me like I matter," she whispered, unable to stop the words. "Why?" He looked up, his eyes calm but serious. "Because you do," her throat tightened. She turned her gaze away, unable to meet his eyes any longer. No one had ever said that to her. Not her masters, not the crowds, not even her own kind. She wanted to believe him, but her heart was afraid. The human stood and offered his hand. "Come," he said. "We cannot stay here. I have a ship." The girl hesitated. A ship? To her, ships meant cages. Travel meant being sold from one master to another. But something about his voice made her want to follow. Slowly, she placed her hand in his. His grip was firm, steady, not controlling but guiding. Together they walked through broken streets until they reached the outer edge of the city. Beyond the walls, the ground opened into an abandoned landing field. Old ships lay rusting under the pale glow of distant stars. At the far corner stood his vessel, a small worn craft with scratches across its metal hull, but it looked alive compared to the dead machines around it. As they approached, the girl's steps slowed. Her chest tightened with fear. "If I step inside," she whispered, "will I ever come out again?" The human paused at the ramp and turned back to her. His face was tired, but his eyes held only truth. "You are free to leave whenever you wish. I will not force you. This ship is not a prison. It is a way forward." For a long moment she stood frozen. Then with trembling steps she walked up the ramp and entered. Inside, the ship was small but warm. Lights hummed gently. Machines buzzed softly, and the air smelled faintly of metal and oil. It was not a palace, but it was not a cage either. For the first time in her life, she saw space that belonged to no master, no auctioneer. The human guided her to a seat and handed her a small packet of food. She stared at it, uncertain. Slowly she opened it and tasted the simple bread inside. The flavor was plain, but her stomach ached with hunger, and tears filled her eyes as she ate. It had been so long since anyone had given her food without expecting obedience in return. The human sat across from her, silent, watching. He did not push her to speak. He let her take her time. After a while, her voice returned, soft and broken. "I do not even know your name." He leaned back, arms resting on the chair. "Call me Marcus," he said. "Marcus." She repeated it in her mind, feeling the weight of a name freely given. "And you?" he asked gently, her lips trembled. She had almost forgotten her own name. Masters rarely used it. She spoke it like a secret. "Lyra," she whispered. Marcus nodded slowly, repeating it with respect. "Lyra." Her chest tightened again. No one had spoken her name with such care before. The ship's engines rumbled softly as Marcus began preparations. Through the window, the city lights flickered behind them. Lyra leaned closer to the glass, watching the stars grow brighter. She had seen them many times from cages, always as symbols of faraway freedom. Now they felt closer, but fear still lingered. She clutched her knees, her voice trembling. "What if they come after us again? The hunters, the market, they won't stop." Marcus adjusted the controls, his eyes fixed on the stars. Then we won't stop either. As long as I breathe, you will not return to chains. Her eyes filled with tears. She did not know how to trust, yet something inside her began to soften. For years her heart had been locked as tightly as her wrists. Now cracks formed in the walls she had built. For the first time, she allowed herself a thought she had buried long ago. Maybe tomorrow can be different from yesterday. As the ship lifted into the night sky, leaving the broken city behind, Lyra closed her eyes. The engine's hum sounded like a lullaby. For the first time in years, she slept not as a slave, but as someone free. The ship glided through the silence of space, stars stretching endlessly outside the small window. Lyra sat curled in her seat, watching the galaxy pass like a river of light. Her chains were gone, her body was free, but her heart was still locked. Marcus moved quietly at the controls, adjusting the ship's course. He glanced at her from time to time, but never forced her to speak. He gave her space, as if he understood that freedom was not only about broken cuffs, it was also about healing wounds no one could see. Hours passed in silence. Lyra finally whispered, her voice soft as dust. "You risked your life for me." "Why?" Marcus leaned back, eyes on the stars. "Because I have seen too many people treated as less than human or less than alive." "I couldn't walk away," she lowered her gaze. His words warmed something inside her, yet fear clawed at her chest. She had been told many lies before. Master spoke kind words until the door closed and the chains returned. What if this is the same? Slowly she lifted her sleeve, showing scars on her arms, long, thin lines where the cuffs had burned. "This is what kindness gave me before," she said bitterly. Marcus did not look away. He did not flinch. Instead, he reached forward, his fingers brushing near the scars, though he did not touch without permission. "Then let me prove I am different," he said. Her throat tightened. She pulled her arm back, hugging herself tightly. "I cannot trust. Not yet." He nodded once without anger and returned to the controls. "Then I will wait." The ship continued its steady path, engines humming like a heartbeat. Later, Marcus guided the ship into a small orbit around a quiet moon. He explained it was a safe place to rest, away from the market's patrols. Lyra followed him down the narrow hall to a small cabin. The room was plain but clean, a soft bed, a small shelf, a light that glowed gently. "This is yours," Marcus said. "You can lock the door from inside. No one will enter without your choice." Lyra stared at him in disbelief. Slaves did not get rooms. Slaves did not get locks. For a long time she stood frozen. Then slowly she stepped inside. When the door closed, she leaned against it, her chest rising and falling quickly. She touched the lock with trembling fingers. For the first time, the control of safety was in her hands. She lay on the bed, but sleep would not come. Memories attacked her. Voices shouting, chains clinking, the cold podium lights. She pressed her hands over her ears, fighting to silence them. Tears slipped down her cheeks, though she had promised herself long ago never to cry. Suddenly, a gentle knock came at the door. "Lyra." Marcus's voice spoke softly. "You are safe." "Nothing will harm you here." "If you need me, I'll be nearby." She pressed her face into the pillow, silent. A war raged inside her. Part of her wanted to trust his voice. Part of her wanted to run far away before he turned cruel like the others. The next morning, when she finally opened the door, Marcus was sitting quietly outside, resting against the wall. He had not entered, had not forced his way in. He simply waited. Her heart shook at the sight. Why would anyone wait for me like this? They shared breakfast in silence. She ate slowly, stealing glances at him. His face was tired but calm, his movements simple and patient. He did not treat her as fragile, but neither did he demand anything. At last she found her voice again. Do you have a family?" Marcus looked at the stars through the window, his jaw tightening. "Once," he said, "but war took them. That is why I fight for those who cannot fight for themselves." Lyra's eyes softened. Pain recognized pain. She realized then that his strength did not come from being untouched by suffering, but from surviving it. But peace did not last. An alarm beeped sharply on the control panel. Marcus stood instantly, scanning the screen. His eyes darkened. "What is it?" Lyra asked, fear rising. "A signal," he said grimly. "The market has placed a bounty on us. They want you back, and they want me dead." Her stomach turned cold. She had known this would happen. Freedom always carried chains hidden in the shadows. She gripped her arms, whispering, "I should leave." If I stay with you, they will kill you. Better they take me than both of us. Marcus turned sharply, his voice firm. No. Listen to me, Lyra. They will never stop hunting you, not even if you go back. You don't need to sacrifice yourself to protect me. Tears filled her eyes. But why? Why do you care so much? He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Because your life matters. Because you are more than what they made you believe. Her walls cracked further. The fear still screamed inside her, but another voice, softer, warmer, whispered that maybe, just maybe, he was telling the truth. She looked at him, eyes trembling, voice breaking. Then stay with me. Don't let them take me back. Marcus's hand hovered near hers, close but not touching. I promise. Outside the ship, stars burned brightly, but so did the shadows of danger drawing closer. Hunters were still searching. The bounty was high and enemies would come soon. Inside, however, something fragile was beginning to change. Lyra's chains were gone, but her heart's walls were harder to break. Yet for the first time, cracks of light shone through, and with Marcus's promise, she dared to believe that maybe, just maybe, freedom was more than a dream. The stars outside the ship looked peaceful, but inside the cabin, tension was heavy. Marcus adjusted the ship's controls, his jaw tight. Lyra sat near the window, clutching her knees, fear running through her veins. She had overheard the bounty notice. The market would never stop. That night, the silence broke again. A sharp alarm echoed through the ship, an incoming signal. Marcus's eyes darkened as he read the screen. They've found us, he muttered. Lyra's heart skipped. The hunters? He nodded, and more. They've sent a fleet. Through the window, distant lights flickered in the black sky, red beacons of enemy ships closing in. Engines rumbled outside, the hum of predators circling their prey. Lyra gripped the seat, her voice trembling. We can't fight them all. You'll die, and they'll take me back. Marcus looked at her with calm fire. Not while I breathe. Moments later, the ship shook violently. Laser fire streaked across the sky, red bolts exploding around them. Marcus steered hard, weaving through the attacks. Lyra clung to the seat, fear filling every bone. One hunter ship locked onto them, closing fast. Marcus fired the rear cannon, striking its wing. The enemy vessel spun into darkness, but two more appeared in its place. The radio cracked with a cold voice. Surrender the girl, human. Your death will be quick. Lyra's throat tightened. She whispered, Maybe I should give myself up. Maybe then you will live. Marcus turned sharply, anger flashing in his eyes. No, you are not theirs anymore. Do you understand me? You are not theirs, her breath caught. No one had ever spoken like that before. The battle raged on. Marcus fought with skill, dodging blasts, striking back with precision. But the hunters were many and their weapons were strong. The ship rattled, alarms flashing red. Smoke filled the cabin. Lyra's fear reached its peak. She thought she would lose him, lose everything. But as she looked at Marcus, sweat on his brow, determination in his eyes, something shifted inside her. She was not just afraid anymore. She wanted to fight. Tell me what to do, she cried. Marcus glanced at her, surprised, but saw the fire in her eyes. He nodded quickly. Take the controls there, release the flares when I say. It will confuse their weapons. Her hands trembled as she gripped the switch. The ship shook again, a blast grazing their side. Sparks flew. Marcus shouted, Now! She pressed the switch. Bright bursts of light exploded behind them, scattering across the sky. The hunters' targeting beams flickered and lost focus. For a moment they were safe. Lyra gasped, her heart racing. She had helped. For the first time, she was not only being saved, she was saving too. But the hunters were relentless. Their leader's ship, larger and darker, emerged from the fleet. Its voice thundered through the comms. You cannot escape. She is property. She belongs to us. Marcus's voice hardened. No, she belongs to no one. The leader's cannons charged, glowing bright. One hit would destroy them. Lyra stared in horror. Marcus whispered to her, calm despite the danger. Trust me, her chest tightened. I do. With one swift motion, Marcus cut power to the main engines, letting the ship drift like a dead shadow. The hunter's sensors lost lock for just a heartbeat. In that moment, Marcus reignited the thrusters at full burn, spinning the ship downward. Their cannons fired, missing by inches. He returned fire, striking the leader's ship across its side. The blast shook the enemy vessel, forcing it to retreat for repairs. The rest of the fleet scattered. The sky grew quiet again. Lyra could hardly breathe. She looked at Marcus with wide eyes, tears streaming down her cheeks. You did it. You saved us, Marcus shook his head softly. We saved us together. Silence returned, heavy but calm. Lyra's heart beat wildly, not with fear now, but with something new. She had fought. She had chosen to trust. And she had seen what freedom truly meant, not running, not chains, but standing beside someone who believed in her worth. Her voice was soft when she finally spoke. You didn't just free my body, you freed my heart. Marcus looked at her, eyes warm. And you gave mine a reason to beat again. For a long moment they sat together, the stars glowing beyond the glass. No chains, no podium, no masters, only two souls bound by choice, not force. Lyra reached out, her trembling fingers brushing his hand. He didn't pull away. In that simple touch, she knew the truth. Her story was no longer one of chains. It was one of freedom and love. The ship drifted onward into the quiet galaxy, leaving the dark city and its hunters behind. The road ahead was uncertain, full of dangers yet to come. But for the first time, Lyra did not fear the future, because she was not alone, because someone had chosen her, not as property but as a person. And in that choice, she found everything she had lost and more than she ever dreamed.